Good morning, traders. I'm Emily Advani, the CEO of the Investment Banking Institute and your host here at NewsWare's Trade Talk. Joining me is trading anchor Bill Olson, who brings more than 30 years of institutional trading experience to our program. At Trade Talk, we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Today is Wednesday, August 13th. Investors weigh their Fed rate cut hopes, and with a bet on a September cut following the latest CPI print, it was a record-setting day on Wall Street yesterday. During regular trading, the S&P 500 and NASDAQ set new record highs. The S&P 500 climbed 72 points, or 1.13%, and at 6,445 points. The NASDAQ advanced 296 points, or 1.39%, to close at 21,681 points. The Dow gained 483 points, or 1.1%. Bill, let's get into today's action with what is happening in the markets this morning.
Yes, good morning, Emily. Yeah, S&Ps, I'm watching them. They're extending their gains from yesterday. I mean, we're up 0.21%, so more than 0.2%. That's positive. And you're right, the market's continuing to feed off of Tuesday's milder than expected CPI report. I mean, today the economic calendar is rather light. You get the PPI due out tomorrow, but today it's still kind of light. Expectations for a Fed rate cut in September, really, they're nearing 100%. But there's still a lot of economic data to come out between now and that September meeting. So don't be jumping, into this into the water just yet. But I mean, because think about what's happening like this weekend. We have that summit going on between Russia's President Putin and the U.S. President Donald Trump over Ukraine. Ukraine's not involved in it. So any deal they come up with, I mean, it's got to be ratified by Ukraine, and Ukraine already said, we're not giving up any land. So the likelihood of a positive outcome from that geopolitical event is slim. So geopolitical events do have an effect on the market, and this could be a negative aspect in the market, especially on Friday. So Trump's downplaying what this meeting is all about. He's talking about it just being a feeling out meeting, but we'll have to wait and see. What else? Next week we got Jackson Hole, the Jackson Hole Summit. That's the key economic conference of the year. I mean, it happens in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. And the Fed Chairman Jerome Powell is supposed to speak next Friday, and he's going to be dovish. He's going to have some dovish commentary for the market, so that the markets will run into that Jackson Hole event. Trump's pick to lead the BLS. The guy's floated the idea of suspending the Non Farm Payrolls report. I mean, I guess if you anticipated to be bad numbers, that makes sense. Suspend it for a while, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't think that's going to really fly, but we'll have to see. There's more data coming out on that. In corporate news, Spirt Airlines, oh no, they're warning that they may not be able to continue operations if their financial picture does not improve soon. Not good. In terms of earnings, LITE and EAT, they're both trading higher after their earnings releases. CAVA and CRWV, CRWV, they're lower after the bell today. You got Cisco, ticker CSCO, and COHR. They're both expected to report after the bell. Turning our attention over to what's happening in Europe this morning. Europe is showing, some positive action, I will have to say. You're looking at the DAX, the DAX is higher. The DAX is up 0.7%. For 170 points. Optimism about a U.S. inflation, ECB rate cut expectations, anticipation of positive corporate earnings. That's all combining to push that index higher this morning. And then you get the FTSE in London. The FTSE's up about 0.2%, 0.19%. You're seeing some positive action in the home building stocks. The CAC in Paris is up 0.5%, 0.51%. Again, that rally is being fueled by the dovish monetary policy expectations from the Fed and strong performance in the industrial sector. And then you turn your attention over to Asia, and Asia actually saw gains across the board. We look at the Nikkei. The Nikkei jumped another 1.3%. I mean, strong corporate earnings, positive sentiment among manufacturers in respect to the new trade agreement with the U.S. That's causing that market to see, nice gains over the last couple of days. In Hong Kong, Hong Kong rallied 2.58%. That's 643 points. Tech was strong. Financial stocks, also outperformed. In China, the Shanghai was up 0.48%. That ongoing truce on tariffs between the U.S. and China, it's helping sentiment. And, it really did help tech stocks move higher. So that was all positive. And then you look at oil, oil is lower today. You got WTI trading at $62.88. You got Brent trading at $65.93. They're down about 0.3% around there. The American the API data came out last night, and face the facts, the API data that came out, it did show a build in inventories. Stockpiles rose by 1.5 million barrels. Later today, you get the official inventory report. So that's the key for oil today, is these stockpile reports. But you're dealing, oil is dealing with the situation of rising inventory data and expectations of slower demand as the summer driving season is really coming to an end. So that's what we see happening there. But that's what I have for you in terms of a morning market update report, Emily.
Bill, as you mentioned, we're continuing the momentum from yesterday's positivity around that milder than expected CPI print and, the hopes for a sooner rather than later Fed rate cut. But as you pointed out, there's a lot of data that's coming out between that and September. And we're going to be following that not only this week, but next week, a number of economic events that you pointed to. So day in and day out, we're diving into the details to make sure that we're keeping track of all of this data that will be moving the markets. One area that we continue to watch day in and day out is earnings action. And there's a number of notable earnings that came out. So, Bill, let's start there. What is going on in terms of earnings action?
Well, I'm going to start with what came out last night. We have CAVA Group, ticker CAVA. Hey, they beat by 3 cents, but it was done on lower revenue. You look at the stock this morning, and the stock's getting hit. It's down 24.30%. Then you're looking at CoreWeave, CRWV. They didn't have a great report. I mean, they did deliver a beat, but it was just an okay report. And when it's okay like that, I mean, they lost on the EPS, but you really can't look at an EPS on a company like CoreWeave. You got to look at the revenue, and the revenue was higher. It wasn't significantly higher. They did guide. Their guidance was good. Stock's down 9.84%. Then, this morning you have, ticker LITE, Larry India, Tom Edward, they beat by 7 cents. That stock's up 5.30%. Then you have, EAT, ticker EAT, Brinker International. I mean, listen, they did deliver a beat. They topped EPS by about 5 cents on higher revenue, but their guidance was stellar. And, you look at EAT, Edward, Apple, Tom, that stock is up 7.93% this morning, which is very positive. Upcoming after the bell today, we got some interesting earnings. We got Cisco coming out, ticker CSCO. Their EPS is 97 cents. Expected move is 5.24%. Coherent Corp, that's ticker COHR. Their EPS is 93 cents. Expected move is 10.51% when they release after the bell today, Emily.
But we started off our conversation at pre-show today saying that we both felt light because your pick of the day yesterday was Lumentum, and they did release that earnings report. And by the end of the show, we will get to a recap on that. So stick with us, even if we gave away a hint that it's may have been a gainer there. Now we're going to get to the day's economic events. As you mentioned, a little bit slow today, but we have more reports coming out next week and plenty to expect at Jackson Hole Summit next week. So, Bill, what is going on in terms of the day's economic events?
Yeah, the calendar's light today. There's no way around. Tomorrow you get the PPI data coming out. That's going to be an interesting one. But the only real big economic report that's coming out is the EIA oil inventory report. Remember, the API already showed a build, and a build is negative for oil prices. So you could see another build. But, you also have that Trump summit coming up with Putin. If they don't come out with something positive to say, a good spin, you're going to see oil prices rise if that ends in like disagreements. But today you get the EIA oil inventory report. And then there's a couple of Fed speakers. Austin Goolsbee of the Chicago Fed, he's speaking at 1 p.m. And then at 1:30, you're going to also hear from Atlanta Fed Bank President Raphael Bostic. But that's what I have for you in terms of an economic report, Emily.
Bill, we get to this point in the show and you really have your finger on the pulse of all the market moving information. You're looking at those economic events, everything from economic reports to what's going on with the Fed to those geopolitical events, along with that earnings action, of course, keeping track of overseas markets and oil. And still, you're keeping track of more news, data, and information. Using your NewsWare, you're also following things like merger news, guidance news, shareholders meetings, buyback news, catalyst calls. You're looking at different sectors and segments, looking at your stocks grouped together, like your FANG stocks and your Dow 30 stocks. So, Bill, what else do you see is possibly moving the markets today?
Doing a quick data check. I'm looking at my Dow stocks. I got 26 higher, 2 lower, and 2 unchanged. Wow, that's positive. And then you look at your FANG stocks; they're all in the green. All of them are, as green as can be this morning. That's nice to see. You're looking at some news behind the tape this morning, and you gotta start off with Google. I mean, there are bids coming in for Chrome. Now the estimated value for Chrome is between $20 billion and $50 billion. However, the judge has yet to make a decision if the sale is going to be required, but they're throwing out bids to kind of show there's interest in it, to kind of play into the judge's hand to ask them to do a sale, but it doesn't mean the sale is going to happen. Then you got Meta Platforms. Mark Zuckerberg said Threads just passed 400 million monthly active users. Nice. Tesla, OpenAI, Sam Altman, he's challenging Elon Musk with his plans for a Neuralink rival. Ooh, that would be a cause for disagreement coming up in the future. Looking at Dow Jones 30 stocks, and we're looking at NVIDIA. Apparently, the U.S. government is putting tracking devices on the shipments, that are being sent out. They really want to, prevent these, high-valued AI chips to being pushed out into China. Apple, an Australian judge says Apple and Google engaged in anti-competitive conduct. Boeing, ticker BA. Boeing reported yesterday 48 planes delivered in the month of July. That's positive. That's more than I think they did the previous month. In terms of merger news, let's look at this. GIL, Grace India Larry, Gilead. They just announced that they're going to be acquiring Hanes Brands for $2.2 billion, a $2.2 billion deal. They're going to take over the debt too, so then good. But HBI is being taken over by GIL. Then you got Google. I mean, Perplexity is offered to buy Google Chrome for $34.5 billion. That's more than what Perplexity is worth. That deal's never going to happen. In terms of guidance news, CRWV, CoreWeave sees Q3 revenue coming in 1.26 billion to 1.3 billion. Street estimates 1.25 billion. Good, not great. Brinker International, that's ticker EIT, Elvis, Apple Tom, they see full year 2026 EPS coming in $9.90 to $10.50. The street estimates $9.91. Ooh, that's a nice EPS expectations that they put out there. And then we got to talk about ticker FLYY, Frank Larry Yellow. That's Spirit Airlines. They warned that they might not be able to survive another year if it doesn't raise more cash. This is happening just months away from them exiting bankruptcy. Not good. The stock's getting hit hard today. In terms of shareholders meeting, SJM, Sam, John, Michael, S.J. Smuckers is holding a shareholders meeting today. It's supposed to start at 12 noon. In terms of buyback news, Eat Elvis, Apple Tom, that's Brinker International. They announced a 400 million share repurchasing authorization. Hilton Grand Vacations, Henry Grace Victor, they announced a 40 million share buyback. And Intap, INTA, Indian Nancy Tom Apple, they announced 150 million stock buyback. That's all good. But that's what I have for you in terms of news hitting the tape this morning, Emily.
This is the type of data that NewsWare delivers daily. It's factual, it's market moving, and our alerting functions bring it to your attention as it happens. Go to www.newsware.com now and sign up for the trial and see for yourself the benefits that professional Newswire delivers. We've now made it to that time of the show for the Trade Talk pick of the day, but the markets are on a run. So is the pick of the day. What do you have for us today?
I This morning, I'm going to stick with our earnings play. I'm going to go with Birkenstock, ticker BIRK. Boy, India, Richard Kilo. Listen, earnings are out tomorrow morning. EPS is 66 cents. Expected move is 10.05%. Now, you look at yesterday's call volume, 1,555 calls traded against 383 puts. So, I mean, that's more than 3-to-1. And then you look at the open interest, 13,008 contracts versus 12,489. That's about even. But the call volume yesterday was very strong. And the major brokers are positive on the stock. They've got good, strong ratings on it. And last quarter they gave solid guidance. Last quarter in their earnings report. So I do like BIRK, Boy India, Richard Kilo, but I got to get it in the right price. I mean, honestly, I want to get it at 49, around the low 49s. I don't know if that's going to hit. The stock's already, stock's trading $49 on the bid, $50.10 on the offer. So, I'll say 49 to 49.40, somewhere around there. But that's my pick of the day. Ticker BIRK. Earnings are out tomorrow morning, Emily.
Birkenstock, it is on an earnings play and looking for that specific entry point and a strategy that you have used, in a number of picks recently that have worked out well. And that obviously includes yesterday's pick of the day, as we pointed it out, but in just a moment, we'll do a full recap on that pick of the day. So stick with us through that. But first, let's take a look at the current breaking headlines that have hit the tape in our hot off the press segment. Bill, take it away.
Let's talk about Dave, D-A-V-E, David, Apple, Victor, Edward. Dave expands their share repurchasing authorization to 125 million. Wow. That's a good little stock. Trump is said to be considering David Zervos and Rick Ryder for Fed Chair. Trump's considering 11 candidates for the Fed Chair in total, they say. Well, Scott Bessent is out there, said China could see this NVIDIA chips model in other industries, no national security concern. OC, GN, Oscar, Charlie, Grace, Nancy, EMA positive advice for acceptability of the drug. AFL, Aflac, they increased the size of their share repurchasing program. Board of Directors has authorized the purchases up to 100 million shares of its common stock. Eli Lilly's launches injector pen for their weight loss drug in India. ABBV is to invest 195 million in the Illinois API manufacturing expansion. Disney and Webtoon did a deal. Webtoon's up like 35% this morning. After disclosing, Webtoon's up because they disclosed the partnership with Walt Disney DIS. Chevron, CVX, a Chevron charter tanker docked at Venezuelan state terminal on Tuesday. That's like the first step for it to export crude under the U.S.'s new license agreement that they gave to them about 6 weeks ago. Trump's out there taking a shot at Goldman Sachs CEO David Solomon. That's all I'm seeing this morning, Emily.
Okay, Bill, before we sign off today and get to trading on this Wednesday, let's do that check-in on yesterday's pick of the day, which was Lumentum, as we pointed out earlier in the show, ticker LIE, LITE. Now, I did catch at least a handful of price target raises on the stock this morning. As you told us during your earnings rundown, they did report earnings yesterday after the bell. They reported a Q4 EPS of 88 cents. That was ahead of analyst estimates of 80 cents. Revenue for the quarter came in at $480.7 million versus the consensus of $467.31 million. Looking ahead, the company sees a Q1 EPS of 95 cents to $1.10. The consensus here was only 88 cents. They see Q1 revenue of $510 million to $540 million. The consensus there was $499.9 million. Now, you were looking for a specific entry point and hoping to get a gain from there using your earnings strategy. Bill, how did your call work out?
I mean, you got to appreciate LITE, Larry, India, Tom, Edward. I mean, you got to look at the numbers. I mean, the stock opened up at 116.19 and then hit a high of 120.30 cents, $120.30 during the trading day. Look at the stock now. I mean, it's already hit a high of 126.35. I mean, now the stock closed at 119.66, but after earnings, it hit 124. But, this morning, 123 to 124.5. already with a high of 126.35, as I said. My entry price was a little low, but I had to go low with my entry price because we had the CPI report, and the CPI report was expected to be hot. And so I was pricing that in there, but I also was like, listen, if it comes in mild, you just got to run with it. And that's what I did because, I felt good with LITE. Everything looked good. It hit it hit all my boxes. So I liked LITE. I just was unsure of the entry price because remember, we were recording before the CPI number came out. But as soon as you saw that mild print, but we were off to the races. And LITE up over 3% this morning was up big yesterday as well. It was a win-win-win. Any way you look at it, LITE winner.
LITE was off to the races. Bill, gain there for a win, and we will check in with you tomorrow about today's Birkenstock pick of the day, another earnings play. Bill, thank you as always for your expert insight. Join us back here tomorrow and each weekday morning at NewsWare's Trade Talk when we provide the facts, themes, and trading ideas for the day ahead. Again, I'm your host, Emily Advani, here with trading anchor Bill Olson. Traders, you know what to do. Let's go out there and make some green.